So in this Friday Pilates class, as you lean, feel into what you do with your spine. Do you continue to lean out from the leg, or do you lean back away from the leg with your spine to counterbalance? Just notice what your habit is and ask yourself, what would create most ease? Try leaning with the lean, like your head's leaning that same direction. Notice what happens at your core, and then try leaning back away from the moving leg slightly and ask yourself, what creates more ease in my body? And keep that in mind as you lift the arm you're leaning towards out to the side and the other arm front. And now I'd like you to notice if you have the tendency to follow your arms. Maybe you follow the forward arm forward with your spine. If you do, feel any tension that might put on your lower back. And for a moment, try leaning back away from your arms. And notice, does that create more of a balanced feeling over your pelvis? Tuning in to where you place yourself in space. Okay, and then pause that and reach for your ball. And let's take the right foot out, the ball in the right hand. And really ground through the left leg now. Hug in the banks of your river and float your arm up and float the ball down the other side. Take the other foot out and float up and float down. And again, feel into the balance. Now you have more happening. Feel into what happens with the limbs. Where do you place your spine? What core muscles turn on? And remember that in Pilates, the powerhouse is from your inner thighs, your outer thighs, up to your lowest circle of ribs. It includes your inner thighs, your buttocks, your pelvic floor. So feel into that. Now notice if you ground from your pelvis into the four corners of your foot, how that grounding can help. I'm getting confused. I can't talk and do this motion at the same time. Really find that rooting through the foot to rise out all the way up the spine. Now pause here and take your ball forward and imagine that you have a marionette string attached from the ball to your knee, and lift the knee to the toe and lower. Keep the heart lifted, broad across pelvis and shoulder girdle. Think of a marionette puppet, how the strings are held out by the wooden pieces above. And lift and lower and lift and lower. Maybe you lift to the toe. Maybe you lift off. Ground your tailbone. Ground the four corners of the standing foot. Lift the low rib ring. Lift the heart. Lift the back base of the skull. Now lift just to the toe and open the knee and close and open and close. Really hug in your standing leg glute. Open and close, open and close and release. Now lift to the toe of the other foot and release. Lift the arm, lift the knee and release. Feel how rooting the leg and lengthening the spine from the center pelvis can help you create stability. And just lift to the toe and open the knee and close. Open and close. As you open the shoulder, open towards the other shoulder as well. Broaden across the shoulder girdle. Solid, strong pelvis with one moving leg, rotating externally and internally, and set it down. Now, float up to the opposite knee and lift, and then lightly touch the toe. Lift and touch, and lift and touch, lift and touch, and lift and touch, and step down. And switch hands. Lift and touch, lift and touch, lift and touch, lift and touch down. Now lift the knee. Maybe you just lift to the toe. You can use what works for you. And open. Broaden across the pelvis, broaden across the shoulder girdle, and close, and open, and close, open, and close, and open, and close. Release. Lift to the other toe. Now root your tailbone. Lift the base of the back of your skull. Lean back. Feel your heel circumference. And lift the knee. And open. And close. And open. Close. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One more. And step down. Take the ball between both hands. Inhale. Lift skyward. From the pelvis, root down. Lift the low rib ring and draw energy up like a stocking around the spine. Release the shoulders away from the ears. Let the stocking come all the way up around the neck into the skull. And lift to the balls of your feet. And lower your heels. And lift. And lower. And lift. And lower. Lift. And lower. One more. Lift and lower. Bring the ball forward and bend your knees into an Utkatasana type position. Draw the ball in right at the heart, palms pressing into the ball. Let your tailbone release long and breathe up the length of your spine all the way through the neck. Put your weight onto your right foot and lift to the toe of the left. Release the left foot, lift to the toe of the right. Release and lift. Release and lift. Perhaps release and lift the foot off and lower. Lift the foot off and lower. One more each side. Lift and lower. A lift and lower. Release the arms down towards the floor and lift them skyward. Let the elbows curl out so the shoulders can be broad. Lean into your heels, root your tailbone, and lift one knee. Lift the knee as high as it will come, and then lightly touch the toe. Lift and touch. So for some of you, it might be right off the floor. For others, the knee may come higher. Don't hitch the hip to get the knee high. How high can you lift the knee with the hip steady? And one more, and release. Lift to the other toe. Hug your banks of the river in, and lift and touch. Lift and touch. Lift and touch. And lift and touch. Release. A lift to the other toe. Lift either off the floor or open with the toe on the ground, and close. And inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. One more. Inhale and exhale. Release. Lift to the other toe. Hug in the banks of your river. Draw energy stocking up the spine, so the whole circumference. And lift and open and close. And inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Release the foot. Bring your hands back to your heart. Press your hands into the ball and take one foot behind you. Those of you who don't back bend, you'll hinge forward. Those of you who do, lift the heel behind you, lift the heart into the ball. Tailbone reaches for back heel, lift the low back ribs away. Now front abdominal strength, draw energy up that front spine. Draw the energy stocking up. And draw the knee forward and through, and take the foot back, stretch, lift the heart. So knee comes through, that's a forward fold. Leg comes back, lift the heart, back bend. Knee forward and lift. If you're not back bending, draw the knee forward and then hinge. Draw and hinge. We lift and open the pose one more time. Lift the foot behind you, lift the heart into the ball, broad across the shoulders, and release. Step up the other side, the next foot back. Root all four corners of the standing leg. Hug in the banks of your river, all the way up to the armpits. And lift the foot gently behind you. For some of you, it may just be an almost lift. Lift, draw energy up through the pelvic floor, up the front spine, into the ball. Shoulder girdle broad, lift the base of the skull. And draw the knee through. And stretch the foot back. And draw the knee through. And stretch the foot back. Draw and inhale, lift the heart, lift the head, lift the gaze, and release. Let's release the ball and roll the left shoulder back and roll the right shoulder back and sway side to side, opening the myofascia. Let the elbows circle. Warming up our shoulders a little bit. Fluid breath. The arm can open into a backstroke. Feel this pec minor stretching, this chest muscle here that connects your humerus into the chest tissue. For most of us, that is tight and short, and so this circling helps us to open that tissue back towards healthy postural alignment. Now reach both hands up. Open into your goalpost again. Stretch from elbow to elbow and draw the pinkies towards each other. Cat curl the spine. And inhale, lift the heart. And exhale, cat curl. Bend your knees. Really curl. Release the pelvis away from the head. And then inhale, straighten the legs. Lift the heart broad across the chest. And exhale at your own pace. And inhale. Take a few more breaths. Feel into the body. Remember, the movement can be as small or as large as is right in your body today. One more. And let's pick up the long TheraBand. I'm actually going to move these mats because I don't need them like I do in yoga. Okay. All right. Let's take the TheraBand around your low back ribs. And let's pause for a moment, tuning in to the core around the circumference of the spine. Bring the palms forward, elbows to the inseam of your shirt. Soften your knees forward slightly. Release your tailbone like the third leg of a stool. Imagine it can expand down behind you, and you're sitting on that third leg of the stool. And inhale, draw your hands forward, breathe into the low back ribs. And exhale. Inhale. So historically, when they developed core strengthening exercises, it was to strengthen around the whole circumference of your spine. Then people in gym classes got focused on the beauty of the six-pack and really active obliques. And so that became more of the gym focus. Nowadays, they're bringing it back to the whole circumference of the spine. Breathe into the low rib rings. Imagine a telephone pole, how it's held and centered by guide wires in each direction. If we just strengthen the core on one side of the pole, then there's a guide wire there, but the other three sides are vulnerable. So breathe into your low back ribs as you take the arms forward. Draw energy up from the pelvis into those low back ribs. Pause with your arms out. Lift the low back ribs away from the pelvis. Now draw your attention into the spinal column and draw that energy stalking up the whole circumference. This does not mean you overactivate your glutes or tuck your tail. Keep your natural lumbar curve as you draw energy up the lumbar spine. Draw it all the way up through the thoracic spine of the rib cage to the cervical spine of the neck to the inside of the skull. And exhale, elbows into the inseam of the shirt. Inhale, rest onto your heels. Draw the energy up the spine and exhale. Oh, one more time. Deep fluid breath into the back body. Make it strong. Ground the tail. Draw energy up the back spine, the side spines, all the way up into the skull. And release. Now, maintaining that awareness, bring the TheraBand over the top of your head. Make sure it's far enough back that you can lift into the TheraBand from behind your ears. Bring the arms wide and rooting the feet, lengthen up into the TheraBand and come to one toe. Now draw in the banks of your river, lift through the pelvic floor, and really think of lengthening that energy stalking right up the spine. And lift the knee and take it wide and draw it in and lower the toe and take that same side foot back. Lengthen up the front spine. Some of you will hinge forward if you're not back bending. Lift the heel behind you. Lift the heart into the ball at your sternum. Exhale, knee comes through. Inhale, step the foot back. Knee comes through. Foot lengthens back. Lift heart and heel and release. Lengthen from your rooting feet up through the top of the head. Draw the energy stalking up the center column of the spine. Draw your glutes in and float to the toe. Hug in the banks of your river and lift the knee. And open and close. And take the foot back behind you, lifting the heart broad across the shoulder girdle. Lift the heel. Exhale, draw the knee through. Inhale, lengthen the foot back. Draw the knee through. Lengthen the foot back. One more time, draw the knee through. Lengthen the leg back and lift into the TheraBand. Stretch into both legs. And release. So notice how the strengthening, a lot of times we think of core work as the contraction, but it's the extension as well. We want long, strong, extended muscles when we extend. That's what the TheraBand can help us with. Now, bring your right hand to your hip, left palm forward. We do this so often, and yet there's so much to learn from it. Really root your feet. Really ground the shoulder blade onto the back and open the other arm. Broad across the shoulder girdles. Broad across the pelvis. Root into the four corners of the feet without hyperextending your knees. From the buttocks, lengthen up to the shoulders. Now again, feel into the spinal core. And draw energy up through the pelvic floor, up the length of the spine. Feel for it around the whole circumference. Lift one toe. You choose which side. Lift the knee and lower down and release. Switch sides. Broad across the shoulder girdle. Ground the hand on the hips, shoulder blade on the back. Root into the four corners of both feet and open the other arm. Stretch across the shoulder girdle. Notice how the width can help you create strength. Now draw energy up from the pelvic floor all the way up the length of the spine. Make sure that you don't over effort and tuck the tail. Keep your lumbar curve. Come to the toe. Fluid breath. Draw energy in towards midline from all the banks of the river. And lift and release and roll your shoulders. Okay, let's lift up our hand weights next. Let's bring the hands out like robot arms, opening across your collarbones. Bend your knees again over your second metatarsals and hinge forward. And release the arms towards the floor and lift the elbows to the side seam of the shirt and open the hands behind you. And bend the elbows and lower the arms and lift and open. If you need the support of one hand on the chair, you can take turns side to side. Broad across the collarbones. Now here, we do want to really activate that front abdominal core. Lift your pelvic floor. Activate the front of the spine. Aware also of the sides of the spine. Long. All the way up through the neck. If we drop the head forward, it affects the entire spine. Lift the arms and straighten, bend and lower. Lift the head of the arm bones too. Straighten, bend and lower. Lift and straighten, bend and lower and lift, straighten and hold. Broad across the shoulder girdle. Find those shoulder blades on the back body. Part of what we need in strengthening the shoulders is strengthening the muscles of the back so that the shoulder blades can sit on the back body when we're in neutral, so that the head of the arm bones can rest back. Feel into that strength really lengthen from the base of the skull to the tailbone. Draw energy up the whole spine and bend the elbows and release. Unhinge and roll your shoulders. And pause, rooting evenly into both feet. Float your arms out to the side. Now feel the outer edge of your shoulder blade up to the outer armpit. Lift from there. Try to relax the base of the neck. Let your hyoid bone rest back and take the left arm forward and open it back up. Right arm forward. Notice how your weight may shift a little on your feet. See if you can create strong stability from the pelvis down for these moving arms. Let your head rest back, your hyoid bone. Draw that energy stalking up the spine. And now bend your arms, palms facing the ears, bicep curl, and open. Now feel into rooting into the feet evenly, lengthening up the spine. Draw in the banks of your river. And next bicep curl, lift to one toe. And lower, lift to the other toe. And lower, perhaps lift the knee. And lower, lift the other knee. And lower. Inhale. Exhale. Can you stay with a strong energy stocking as you strengthen the biceps? Can you still lift from beneath the arms? And open. Turn your palms down. Release the arms. Let them float forward, palm facing palm, then palm facing earth and hips. And inhale. Open. Exhale. Inhale. Open. Exhale. As you inhale, lift to a toe. Open. Release. Other toe. Open. Release. Find the banks of your river. Release. Banks of your river. Release. A lift. Open. Relax. A lift. Open. Relax. Inhale. Open. Exhale. Open. Exhale. Lift. Now this time, if you'd like, open the leg. Close. Open. Close. Release. Inhale. Lift. Open. Close. open, close, release. One more set. Lift, open, close, open, close, release. Lift, open, close, open, close, release, and roll your shoulders. Lift your arms up into your goalpost and press skyward, rooting the four corners of the feet. Lean back. Let your arms come a little forward. Let the hyoid bone rest back, the eyes rest back in their sockets, and bring the arms down and stretch them up. Remember, you can be at a forward angle if that's better for your shoulders. You could even be working here. Okay, find the trajectory that's right for you. And as you reach up, lift to the balls and lower. Lift to the balls and lower. Rest your weight back even as you lift forward. Fluid breath. Hug in the banks of your river. And one more. Reach and lower. Exhale, pinkies towards each other. Cat curl the spine. Breathe the ribs away from the vertebrae. A few breaths. And then open the arms. Take the head of the arm bones back. Spread across the chest. Root the tail. And bring the arms towards center and release. And roll the shoulders. Again, put down your hand weights and reach for the TheraBand. And now that we've warmed up the shoulders, let's stretch them a little. Rooting the feet. Inhale your arms up overhead in a Y. And stretch the TheraBand long till it touches your head. We're strengthening. Feel what muscles are working here. Hopefully it's along the outer shoulder blade. This should turn off your upper trap so other muscles get to wake up. Release the hands towards one another. Feel what pulls the TheraBand wide. And release. Take your time. Pulling the TheraBand wide, feel for what muscles are working. Notice if one side engages more than the other. Notice if your arm bones feel like they're in different places in the shoulder socket, and work gently towards symmetry. Three-dimensional breath. One more stretch. Come back to center. Find the banks of your river and take your TheraBand a little back as you root your tail. Lift the low rib ring, lift the heart. Stretch across the front chest. Now, some of you, this will be far enough. You can stay here or bring the arms forward. Some of you will be able to draw the arms behind you and down. And then inhale up and exhale down. Fluid breath. Opening the body, rooting the tail. Pause wherever you feel like, yes, I can feel that stretch of my front chest. And breathe deep into it. And breathe the shoulders broad. Rooted down into the hips and feet. Notice how if you root the pelvis, you can lift the low rib ring and activate your side river banks. You can stay strong in the lumbar. It doesn't have to be what moves as the arms move. And maybe you just come part way back and come forward. Don't underestimate the importance of this stretching. Knees are in neutral. And release and roll your shoulders. Palms up. Let the TheraBand drape across your palms and place your elbows in your golf tees. And open your hands away from each other in external rotation. Broad across your collarbones, find your shoulder blades on the back body. Now draw that energy stalking up your spine. Rest back into your heels and release the hands. Keeping the elbows in their golf tees open again, broad across the collarbones. External rotation of the arm bones. Feel for what's working. Let the shoulders release away from the skull. Exhale, hands back towards one another. And one more time, inhale. Fluid breath. And release. And roll the shoulders. Okay, as we think about shoulders, I would like us to think about our rhomboids. So in the next class, I'd like you to find a way to hook your TheraBand like into a door frame or around a doorknob or something that's at about low rib ring height so that you can pull back on the TheraBand, okay? So one way to do that would be to take your long TheraBand and create a knot in it so that you could open a door and close the door and the TheraBand would hold. So it would be like this. You would draw a knot, you would have a knot at the end, and then you'll stick it through a doorway and close the door so that you can pull on the TheraBand and the TheraBand will stay. Okay, so that's not this time, but I just wanted to throw that out there because we need to start building rhomboid strength. And so that's coming. Okay, let's come to the floor. Please have your ball blocker oov. Have your long TheraBand. And come into your constructive rest. Nod tailbone towards earth and tailbone towards sky. And then come to neutral and lift your right hip as you press the right foot into the floor. Release, lift the left, somatic walking. Now, if any of this core work ends up upsetting your back at all, come back to either gentle pelvic nods or this gentle rocking of the pelvis and try to release. Really try to maintain awareness of the lumbar curve. A lot of times when we strengthen the front abs, we flatten the back. And it will happen in portions of the exercises we do that you flatten the back. But always notice when you're flattening and when you're in your natural curve. Now come to center. Draw your heels in towards your buttocks. Broad across the shoulder girdle. Lift your palms to face each other across the body. Take a pillow out if you have it under head and lift your pelvis. And lower your pelvis. Plant the whole humerus bone back like we do sometimes on the wall. Lower the pelvis. Broad across the shoulder girdle. Lift and lower the pelvis. So those of you who do have extra kyphosis in the upper back, you may not get the head of the arm bones fully back here, but you are grounding them towards the back plane of the body. Now lift and hold. Now lift the right buttock with the right glute and release. Lift the left buttock, lift the left hip higher and release. And switch and release and lift and release. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Notice how you're strengthening the back body. Feel into the muscles along the spine, the glutes, and the hamstrings and the backs of the legs. Try to even the workload. As you shift side to side, feel any tension that lifts the low back. Activate the buttocks. Feel into your hamstrings. Now come to center and lift the pubic bone skyward and pulse. Both buttocks active. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and hold. Lengthen the knees out over the toes. Breathe into the 3 dimensions of your spine, the 3 dimensions of your torso. Now relax the arms, palms up on the floor. Relax the buttocks and roll down one vertebrae at a time, or lower your pelvis to the floor. And nod tailbone towards earth and tailbone towards sky. And come into neutral and float one leg to tabletop and the other to join. If your lumbar spine here is flat on the floor, you may have a curve to your spine. Lift up and put a folded blanket or a ball underneath you. Toe dip one foot towards the floor and exhale it up. Inhale the other foot down, exhale it up. Broad across your shoulder girdle. Ground the humerus bone of the upper arm. Inhale and exhale. Now feel from your front low ribs to your hip pointers. We're coming really into the abdominal core now. Feel hugging those low front ribs towards the hip pointers as you toe dip. Now hug your legs totally towards center. Hug in from the outer leg, creating banks to your river, and open the shins parallel, sit bone distance wide with the heels. And bring the legs together and hug. Now keep the heels together and open the knees shoulder distance wide and toe dip. Right foot past the left. Come back up heel to heel. Left foot past the right. Come up heel to heel. Notice that even though you are engaging a lot of work in the front core, you may also become aware of your back myofascial slings as you dip one foot and draw it back up. Dip the other. Draw it up. Rest the head of your arm bones back. Shoulders broad. Hyoid bone back. And draw your knees together and float one foot to the floor light as a feather. And then the other. And nod tailbone towards earth and tailbone towards sky. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Now lengthen both legs out on the mat. Take a deep inhale. Relax into your exhale and open the feet outer hip distance wide. And now just try to lift your right foot half an inch off the floor. Feel into what's working. And lower it back down. Lift the left foot half an inch off the floor. Notice your myofascial slings front and back. And release. Lift the first side again. Notice how your pelvis may move some, how you may feel active in the front body, and release. Lift the other leg. Feel for what's working, and release. Draw the feet back into constructive rest, and float one foot in, one shin into tabletop, and the other to join. Draw the knees into the chest, circle them wide and away from you. Now, as the knees come towards the chest, feel the flattening of your lumbar curve. As the knees move away, you may feel the reintroduction of your lumbar curve. It's okay for the pelvis and spine to move together sometimes. We just want to be able to differentiate too. Take the knees down the midline away from you and then open and towards you, circling the femur bones in the hip sockets. Feeling the pelvis nod towards you and away, towards your head and away. And hugging the right knee in, lengthen the left leg out. Draw in the banks of your river. Nod nose towards mouth. Lift from the hairline, either almost lifting off or lifting the head. Remember, this is contraindicated for osteoporosis. And switch. Now you're hugging in the banks of your river, but that front abdominal core is working to support the lengthening leg away from your torso. Feel into the line from your big toe ball mound as the foot extends all the way up to the inner thigh, into the lumbar spine and pelvis. Reach and reach, reach and reach, Reach and reach and reach and hug both knees in. And reach hands and feet up towards the sky. Zip up the inner thighs. Hug in the banks of your river. Wrists away from ankles. Circle and hug. Reach wrists away from ankles. Circle and hug. Low rib reads reach towards hip pointers. Circle and hug. Inhale into the stretch. Stretched out, you should have a lumbar curve. As you hug the knees in, it will flatten. We inhale and exhale. We stretch open and then hug. Now reach the right foot overhead, the left foot long in your scissor, and flex and point, flex and point, flex and point. Now gently nod your nose towards mouth, almost lift from the hairline. It may be at 20% of effort, it may be at 60. It may be that you lift the head off hairline towards the shin. Pulse, pulse, and switch. Pulse, 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 pulse. If you're lifted, lengthen the spine out of the pelvis. Feel front ribs gently hug towards hip pointers to maintain stability in the front core. And end with the left leg overhead, head back on the floor, and flex and point, and flex and point, flex and point. Bring your feet together. Bend your knees. Relax the arms broad, palms up, and toe dip one foot or both feet towards the floor. And exhale up. Inhale the toe dip. Now don't allow the front ribs to flare a lot skyward. Keep the front ribs hugging towards the hip pointers as you're broad across the shoulder girdle. Feel a line of energy up that front spine, supporting the movement of the femur bones. Feel for those front ribs reaching for the hip pointers to create stability. Feel for the energy stalking along the spine, particularly strong in front so we don't overarch the back. Now lift back up and bring your hands to your femur bones, fingers up, and press the hands into the femurs as you hug the femurs towards the chest. Press and pull. Lengthen the energy stalking of the spine. Hug the banks of your river towards midline. Continue to breathe fluidly. Pressing hands into legs, legs into hands. Feel the front abdominal core really activate. Ah, yes, there you are. Thank you. And hug the knees in and circle them wide and back together again. Now you can go back to the bent knee tabletop, single leg toe dip or double leg toe dip, or lift the legs skyward. Flex your feet and lower your heels any amount, keeping the low rib ring grounding. Point the toes and float the legs up. And flex and lower and point and lift. Make sure you're grounding at the shoulder girdle. The heads of the arm bones don't curl forward. The low back rib ring grounds. And we inhale, heels down, and exhale, float the feet up. And inhale and exhale. And two more. Inhale and exhale. And last one. And then bend your knees and float the hands behind the head. And exhale, right elbow lifts as you lengthen the right leg. Feel the right low ribs reach for the left hip pointer. Rest the head and hyoid bone back. Feel the right low ribs reach for the left hip pointer. And then switch. Left elbow reaches skyward. Left ribs towards right hip pointer. Don't flop the right knee way in towards your chest and lose integration of the hips. Hug in the banks of your river. And switch. And switch. Hug in the banks of your river. Reach the elbow for the sky. Good morning, obliques. Feel into the shortening across from one side low rib to the opposite hip pointer as we wake up the muscles that support twisting and side bending and also put the brakes on our twisting and side bending. You can play with lowering the legs a little bit if you want to get more into the lower tissue of the core, but don't bring them right down along the floor or you'll start activating the back. We're strengthening the front abdominal core right now. And come back to center and release one foot lightly to the floor and then the other. Nod tailbone towards earth, tailbone towards sky, and relax into the rocking of your pelvis and your fluid breath. Compliment yourself for that great series of 5 work you just did. Take your feet wider than your hips, arms wide, and let the knees come down to one side. Stretch out through the back knee. Now you may feel some tension on that inner trochanter at the inner thigh, where a lot of muscles connect, including your psoas and iliacus, up to the spine. If you'd like, take your arms overhead and stretch the arms long, particularly the back leg, side body, and arm. Deep 3-dimensional breath, relaxing on your exhales. If we strengthen the front abdominal core, we then want to lengthen it. Come back up with the knees and take them to the other side, stretching long through the back knee. Feel into that inner trochanter. It's like a little knob on the inner thigh where a lot of muscles connect, including your psoas and iliacus, your main hip flexors. All that work we did where we were lifting a knee and opening a knee, we've engaged our hip flexors into a shortened position. Now we're lengthening them. Come back to center. Release your arms down to your sides and come into somatic walking. So yes, it's important to activate and strengthen. And don't underestimate then the importance of relaxing and opening into this strength. Now reach for your ball blocker oov and draw it under the sacrum. Broad across your shoulder girdles, palms up, float one leg into tabletop and then the other. Draw both knees in towards your armpits. Flex your feet. Magnetize your inner heels together and stretch the legs up and out to a pointed toe in your Pilates V. Hug in the inline of your legs, lift your pelvic floor and feel your low abdomen working. And draw the knees back in towards the armpits and exhale, lengthen. And inhale, draw in and exhale, press. And inhale and exhale. And inhale. Broad across your shoulder girdle. Rest the heads of your arm bones back. Inhale and exhale. One more. Inhale and exhale. Draw the right leg overhead, left leg long, and come into your bicycle. Let it be slow and fluid. Can you be aware of the outer banks of your river, keeping the hips hugging to a central place for stability as the legs move? Perhaps your lengthening leg toe can come, just draw a gentle line across the floor. You may not reach that far, but if you do, then you're also stretching your psoas as you're strengthening your front hip flexors. Now take the bicycling backwards, lengthening the leg. Feel into how that point at the inner thigh has so many strong muscles connected to it to draw the femur bone back towards your chest. Broad across the shoulder girdle, rest the head of your arm bones back. And lift both feet towards the sky. And then bend both knees gently in towards your heart and just pause with your three-dimensional breath. Invite space into the back body, into the side waists. Expand the side ribs into the front body. And float one foot gently to the floor. There is your front abdominal strength, landing lightly. Float the other foot to the floor and land lightly. And lengthen one leg out over your prop. Stretch your arms overhead if you like. And breathe into the lengthening. So the longer I do this, the more I realize it seems a lot of spinal problems come from compression. They may also come from a lack of stability in the pelvis because people don't know how to hug in the banks of their river. Breathe into the length you're creating in the psoas pathway because this will help you decompress the lumbar spine. And then draw the one leg back in and lengthen the other. Let your mind notice if one side's more compressed than the other. If you're on a ball or oov, you can rock your pelvis a little bit to find different stretches. And then perhaps you lengthen both legs out. Right now, I have this couch behind me. It's kind of fun being in new spaces because you try new things. The couch has a way to reach right under it, and I'm locking my fingers around the base of the couch, which is stretching the whole upper body away from my lengthening legs. Feels really good. And then on the ball, if I rock a little to the left, I really get to stretch the right side, a little to the right, the right. So be willing to play in your spaces. Remember that when you can find tractioning, it's good. I remember a conversation Vicky and I had where she said she stops along the way at like children's playground bars and lengthens her spine. That's really good body care awareness. Come back to center and step your feet in. Release your arms back to your sides. Lift up off your prop and lower down. And let's roll over to our side. Oh goodness, we're going to go a little overtime. And inhale, rainbow your arm up and over. Lift the side body slightly off the floor, lifting the hip. Feel into your side body strength now. And lower the hip. Lengthen the bottom leg if you like. Bring the foot perpendicular and lift again into your side plank. If you'd like to stack your feet, do. Feel the lift from the underside. We are not going to lose strength on any side of that telephone pole. Every guide wire strong. Breathe deep into the body. And exhale, release the hip and roll around to the other side. Elbow beneath shoulder. Lift with your clamshell legs up, bringing the arm over. And then exhale, lower the hips and come into your side plank of choice. Fluid breath. A real strength lifting under the side of the spine. Feel the muscles active in the side, the lower side body. Hug in the banks of your river to help. Draw the energy stalking up the spine. And release the hips. And roll over onto hands and knees. And inhale a cow. And as you pause in your cow, draw energy up along the front and side spines. And then exhale, use that front spine energy to lift into your rainbow. Release the head, broad across the shoulders. Invite the ribs to open away from the vertebrae. And rock your pelvis back towards your heels in your hissing cat, if that feels okay. And breathe into the low back, rocking your hips gently side to side, decompressing the lumbar spine. Inhale up into your neutral tabletop, roll your toes under and roll back into your downward dog and walk your dog. Upper body bone density building when you come into your planks and downward dogs. Rooting into the hands. Think of opening the shoulder so the spine can lengthen. Root into each finger pad to support the whole circumference of the shoulder. Reach the tailbone well away from your body, like you have a very long tail extending back behind you. And then step your feet forward, bend your knees. Rest your torso onto your femur bones. If you need blocks under your hands, use them. Those of you who can lift your sit bones into an Uttanasana forward fold, do so. Let the head hang. Now, if you have osteoporosis, the safest way to come out of a forward fold is to unhinge from the hips by bending the knees. Those of you who don't have osteoporosis and want to continue working on spinal articulation, soften your knees and lift the very inner core of your belly and imagine a wave washing up the front abdomen to float one vertebrae over the other as you roll up, broad across the shoulder girdle, bringing your heels together in your Pilates stance. Zip up the inseam of the legs and draw up the pelvic floor, energy stalking along the spine. Lean into your heels. Now draw in the banks of your river and let your arms float up gently like the banks of the river are lifting up and in at the armpit. And bend your knees and lift your heels and hug in as you lengthen up and lower the heels and bend, lift, hug in and lower, bend, lift, hug in and lower, bend, lift, hug and lower. Now lift, bend, lower heels, zip up, lift, bend, lower heels, zip up, hug in all the way to the inner armpit, lift, bend, lower and zip. And let's inhale. Rooting the feet, raise the arms skyward, lengthen the whole spine. Exhale, hands down to the heart. Now keep that length of spine as the arms circle back up again, drawing good energy into your body for this Friday and this weekend. Keep the banks of the river hugging in. Let the energy move through you as a conduit of energy between earth and sky. And exhale, hands to the heart. Thank you. All right. So it was a back to the basics class today. Okay. Was that good? We did a little shoulders, a little abdominal core, a lot of circumference. Do you feel that idea of the energy stalking up the spine?